What's that?
Recording in progress.
Now that we've heard the term recording in progress, we can now board. So I'm going to call to order the committee of the whole meeting for the West Jordan City. In the temporary council chambers, we have Councilmember Jacob, Councilmember Green, Councilmember Pack, and Councilmember McConaughey. Joining us online is Councilmember Worthen. We will note that the mayor is also here present. He is joining us remotely as well. Councilmember Whitelock is someplace in London, and Councilmember Bloom is someplace on the East Coast. So they are unable to make it tonight. We will continue with, we'll for this meeting, we'll just remind everybody, and then we'll do a reminder as well. At the first part of the main meeting is that if there is a decision to be made tonight, it still requires 4 votes from the council, which means that if tonight we have 2 negative votes, nothing will pass. So, and I will do that reminder as well at 7 o'clock. The first up, we have 3 topics tonight if we get through them. The first topic tonight is water and sewer rate study presentation. Ms. Steck is going to give us presentation, and then we can talk about water rates.
Thank you. I was asked by the council to prepare an updated water and sewer rate study specific to a question that was posed to me on whether we could do a flat rate, especially particularly for sewer, similar to what most sewer companies are charging other agencies are charging for customers. And then maybe looking at a flat water rate that would include the basic culinary level of water, and then kind of maybe marketing or working those other tiers in as landscape or extra use. So that's pretty much what the topic for this discussion is, as well as giving you some statistics on where we are with water use. So the first thing we're going to do is give you some stats on the water system. What's the average use by month by customer type? You're going to see that, and this is current now, so this includes the 16% reduction of use this last summer or spring, since the state has really been focused on conservation. You'll see that during the winter, we are running about 5,000 to 6,000 gallons between November and May for residents on an average, and then 30,000 gallons in July of 2021, but you'll see that's drastically reduced this next year when we give you an updated report for 2022. You'll see commercial, our average use. A lot of this commercial is based on food production or manufacturing. So OSI meats, Dannon yogurt, Papa Pita, those are some large water users. They're the ones that are pretty consistent throughout, and then you'll see some that jump a little bit during the summer months as they either ramp up production or they have increased landscape use for like schools or soccer fields or those kinds of things. Well, schools aren't really commercial. Landscape is the same. You're going to see it really cut off there in December and then ramp back up in May. We have 23,626 residential users, 1,562 commercial, and 440 landscape meters. Our current rate structures. This was a really big discussion when I first came to the city and with this council originally, was equity within the user groups. And we made sure that the current fee structure is providing equitable revenue by consumption by customer type. So you're going to see our revenue from residential customers was about 60% of our revenue this last year, and the use was 57%, so really close. Commercial was 31% revenue and 34% usage. The reason that that's off a little bit, that 3% flux, is that commercial users are consistent in their water use and they only have one connection. So the actual maintenance of the water system is reduced substantially because they take so much water through 1 meter or one line. Whereas residential, it's 1 meter per residence. We've got thousands and thousands of meters to replace or maintain, or even read and bill. So there's a slight discount to commercial because of that. The next topic we're going to talk about is that water rate option. So our current water rates, this is what you adopted in the budget. So it includes the 2% increase that we proposed in the budget and that you adopted from our original. We had not changed our water rates in 2 fiscal years. This is the first increase this is the 3rd year. Our average water bill in January is 5,000 gallons, and it's about $31.65. In April, it doesn't change. July, it ramps up obviously with landscape use, and the average bill is about $123. Now, this is just the water portion, so it's the base rate and the water usage. It's not sewer, garbage, all those other things. And then in September, we use, an average residence uses about 20,000 gallons. This average that I'm providing you is on residentials only, not commercial or landscape. Now, an option would be what I call basic water. That would be that we add a basic water rate. It's $28.50 to remain revenue neutral and would include the first 5,000 gallons that is used, which is pretty consistent with the average winter use for those 7-month periods. And then after that, tier 1 would start at 6,000 gallons. And I don't change the tiers too much. I had to increase tier 1 slightly, just by 2 cents a gallon, to stay revenue neutral with that. What that would do, you can see on the, I'm not good at left and right, on the right side is the average water bill. So under this proposed usage, what would their average water bill be under this schedule versus the current, which is in kind of a grayed out mode on the far right. You can see there's about $3 of savings during the winter months when usage is very low, and then during the summer months, there's a slight savings, but not much. And again, the intention was to stay revenue neutral. Now, pros and cons to this basic water rate. The pros are that under this structure, 64% of our residential water users would benefit from this. They would see a slight savings. Their winter water bills would be consistent and predictable for most users. We could say that it's basic culinary use. It's included in the flat rate. So the people that call in and say, but I only flush my toilet once a day and I only shower every other day and I don't know why my bill's so high. That we need to really let people know that culinary use is not why your bill is high. You've either got a water leak somewhere, you've got a leaky toilet, or especially during the winter, or you might have a stop waste valve that has a leak in it, or there's all kinds of things that occur. But if your water bill is too high, you should be calling the city and asking for our advice. And we do get those phone calls. It's very interesting. Usage in excess of the culinary water, what we would call culinary water, could be messaged as extra water or landscape water or non-necessary water. I don't know how. And it totally depends on your family size, right? I mean, if you have 6 kids that are taking long showers, then your basic water use is a little higher than someone else that has a single person living in the home. Now, the cons would be that 36% of the customers in the water system would not benefit from this change. That's 8,400 people. That's a lot. Not people, customers. Customers who use less than 5,000 gallons a month, they'd pay for water that they may not use. This would be the lowest water users. And the gallons consumed between 5,000 and 7,000 will actually increase in cost because they're jumping up into that next tier instead of keeping them on a tier 1. So that next tier is about 58% increase for those 2,000 gallons that they weren't paying previously. Another con would be that our rate structure has changed twice in less than 5 years, and sometimes that's confusing to our consumers. All right, are there any questions about water? I'd be happy to entertain them.
My question is there a way? I'm not sure I like the 5,000,
Uh-huh.
but what would happen if we had a base rate plus 2,000?
Okay, give me a second. I have it programmed so that we can play, because I knew you would do this to me on the spot. So you are saying up to 2,000 gallons in that base rate, or
Or
3, or 4, or what?
Maybe two. I mean, the lowest, there are some people who are, I mean, I agree with your con on the customers who use less than 5,000 gallons a month are going to pay for water that they're not using. We know that there's a percentage of people that are using 3,000 gallons a month during the winter rate. And those are the ones that I'd be more willing to address with the low rate tier than 5,000. And then, you know where I'm going with that?
I do. There's
Because
actually customers that don't even use 1,000 gallons, quite candidly.
And I'm going to suggest, this may be an ill-fated suggestion, it may be a flawed assumption, but most of the people who are using the 1 to 3,000 gallons a month are probably elderly, fixed income type individuals. And so what I'm wondering is there a way to fix the rate so that the low end water user has a stable, it's $22 a month or whatever it is for, and that's what your base rate is, $22 a month plus the first 2,000 gallons or something like that. That's where I'm going.
So, under the scenario, if you said, I want to do $22 a month as a base rate, and the first 3,000 gallons maybe,
Or do two.
okay, do 2. Takes a second, because this is a lot of data. Okay, 2,000.
Can we back up the slide to where the numbers are
Be happy to.
for the, so that when you pull up new numbers, we can compare them to these numbers?
So at $22 for a base rate and only 2,000 gallons used. Becky, are you running this at the same time? Are you showing a revenue increase for 3%? With 2,000 gallons? Uh-huh, and the same rates. So if we brought, that would be about a 3% revenue increase. So if we brought it down to $3.70 per gallon on that first tier, that probably should bring us revenue neutral. Yeah. So we could bring it down to 2,000 gallons and $22 base rate, and it would be would remain revenue neutral to last year's revenue.
But you'd still have people paying for water that they're not using.
Yes, there would be some. I don't
So-
know if it would be.
Maybe fewer.
Can you go back to the last slide before that, what we're currently doing? Sorry.
Oh, before.
No, what are we currently doing?
Right here.
So let me just confirm, because I believe this was done. So the base rate is for all residential, regardless of meter size, right? We did get that fixed? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're not talking about meter sizes anymore. We're
Good
just doing
question.
residential.
Yes, all residential meters are paying the same base rate, no matter their size.
So, and on here, it's just a flat base rate. You're paying $20.40. And then for each is tier 1 is 1,000 gallons.
Yes.
0 to 7,000.
It's
So for the
0 to
first 1,000
7,000.
gallons, you're paying $2.30.
Good. Yes.
Okay. So anywhere up to 7,000 gallons, I'm still paying the same 230. Once I hit 8,000 gallons, then I'm going to the 372
Correct,
per 1,000 gallons.
correct.
I know, like you said, we've changed it twice. I don't understand why we're looking at changing it again. And especially when I don't want to make someone pay for something they're not using, especially when they're having a hard enough time buying a gallon of milk. So that's where I stand on this.
So for this, one thing that didn't occur to me when we were looking at the other side, but when we're looking at this one, we're basically adding in the $2.30, not quite all of it, into the base rate. But then we're lowering the tier 2 start point from 8 to 2.
Yeah, we are.
So your tier 2 now starts at 2.
Right.
And that means a
Agreed.
lot more people in the summertime are going to be paying a lot more because your 372 now is starting at your.
Those first,
You're going to be paying more in the wintertime. You're going to hit tier 2 in the wintertime. Yeah. Now,
It's
for
possible.
most people,
no, you're right.
except for the very bottom users,
Except when
most
you
people
look
are
at,
going to hit
when
tier
you
2 in
look
the
at,
wintertime. I mean, we're calling it tier 1 because we're throwing tier 1 into the base rate, but in practicality, that's the rate that you start
Yeah,
at.
that the water that's between the 3,000, like once it over 2,000, all the way up to 7,000, then increases in cost by about 50% or more.
Yeah, so now you're looking at tier 2 being, 2,001 up to 25,000. That's a huge.
no, the tiers would change there.
Well, yeah, but that's what it would in practicality be if we don't change anything else. So
What would
a
happen?
lot more moving parts.
What do we need to do with the rates if we dump the base rate and keep the base rate at $20?
Oh, instead of 2040?
Yep,
Okay,
just hypothetically.
you're fine.
How much does that change the water rates on the tiers?
Bring the base rate back to 20 and
And I'm wondering what if we shifted the 40 to tier 2 and higher. Can we do that?
40 cents. Hold on just a second. So then tier 1 is currently at $2.30, so we're going to leave it at 2.30. The
Let's just
base
play
rate at 20.
And let's just see what it does to the other tiers.
You're fine.
I'm just curious. I just think we need to,
I know. I was like, oh, I wish I could share my screen. Um, if I take the 40 cents off, I have a 2.5% decrease in total revenue.
okay.
Oh, it just came back. Sorry, we just saved. This is a lot. Seriously, it takes a minute for this to calculate. We're about revenue neutral, even at going to $20 for a base rate.
See, I'd be at least keeping the 2040 or keeping the base rate 20. And if we need to make up a percentage, I'd rather make it up in tiers 2 through 5 and leave the base rate and the current tier 1 that we have on the screen right now, the 230. I could live with that. I'd just like to keep the base rate at 240 and if for that money, can we make it up between tiers 2 and 5?
Can I ask why we're looking at changing this again?
Well, first off, we never got to look at this before. We didn't get to discuss what we wanted for the water rates and it's to me, it's our obligation as the city council to decide what the water rates are that are most equitable for the residents.
Yeah, and just so that my silence on the matter is understood, I'm fine with the structure that we have right now with the base and the tiers. I'm fine not moving a certain amount in with that base if it's gonna muddle things. I know previously I'd suggested I'd like to see see a certain amount included with the base rate, but I'm happy just sticking with a pay for what you use type of approach. So I'm happy with the current model.
I'm good with the way it is.
Zach, where are you at?
Structure wise, I like the way it is too. We
Well,
can fiddle with the numbers, the rates, but I don't want, yeah, this is a good mix. It's a base rate of you have to pay to access the system because the system has certain fixed expenses that everybody benefits from regardless of how much water you use. You get water at your house by flipping on a switch. That's
Mhm.
awesome, and a lot of people in the world don't get that, so that's nice. So you have a basic rate that you pay for that, and then you pay for everything you use on top of that, and only for what you use on top of that. I think that's about as fair as it gets.
Well,
That's
I'm
my 2
good
cents.
with the structure. What I want to ensure is that we're dealing with a commodity that people have to live on. And I would rather leave the base rate and tier one fairly low so that the people who are using the culinary water to live on can afford it, and that we're not, if the council's good enough to say, hey, we're gonna add $5 a year to somebody who's got fixed incomes water rate, then I'm gonna be okay with that. And I'll live with that. But I think we have an obligation to discuss that. Councilmember Pack, I see your light on.
Great, thank you. Yes, well, that's basically what I was going to say is that, of course, it costs money to connect to the system. Everybody should be sharing in that cost. I want to be very aware of the tier one base users who are trying to conserve money through their efforts and also their finances, not being able to have any extra income, fixed income, retirees, living on a budget. It's nice that we can take care of that, recognizing that if you're going over that base water use, quite often it is for personal desires. True, you might have a garden, and so then that requires more water. But if it's purely for, as the slide indicated a couple of slides ago, landscaping purposes, aesthetic beauty, it might be more of an incentive than to flip the strip or do more water conservation efforts just for aesthetics and personal desire versus bona fide need. So I'd be in favor of making sure that's as low as possible at the base level in tier one and then graduate up from there. Similarly, I'm wondering, thank you for putting up the pros and cons there. Why do we need to restructure a few times in 5 years? You know, what was broken that necessitates having to fiddle around with it? Because when you're trying to address one issue, you inherently create another, right? With any action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So how, even though we had the pros and cons, just wondering why do we need to address this, especially thinking of the base and tier one users, if we could articulate that a little bit more. Thank you.
So I'm going to agree with Councilmember or Vice Chair Green on this one, where I think it's beneficial to have the conversation. My entire time on the council, water rates have always been a subject of intense and sometimes emotional conversation. And it's something that impacts a lot of folks. I very much appreciate having the conversation. The inclusion of that base water amount with that base rate was something I specifically remember in the council asking this probably 2 or 3 years ago, saying, you know what, if we're going to bounce this up, let's at least make sure that they're getting something for it. But as the question was asked and as it was pointed out that, well, now you're going to have people that are paying for something that they may not necessarily be using. It was in that conversation that my mind was changed and I felt like I was happy with what we have now. But it was through that conversation that I felt comfortable with where we were. So I think the conversation is beneficial. I think it's it's right to have the conversation. I think for me, the conversation ends though at, I think the structure's right. Let's talk about the rates associated with each tier. So that's my thought.
So Councilmember Pack, to kind of answer your question, in 2018, the city fell below its debt ratio for its water bonds, and so it needed to do a large increase. At the time, they did a rate study and kind of changed the rates a bit and increased substantially. I want to say it was like almost 40%. they became financially sustainable. However, asked me as I was hired to look at users and do a complete water rate study, which I did. And we've continued to use that study just to update the numbers. So that's been good for us to be able to do that. But in that study, what we found was some inequalities that residents tended to be subsidizing commercial quite substantially in that previous rate study. So it was a great question from the council, and I'm really glad we were able to do that study. And we did some long and hard work on several work sessions to come up with this rate structure that not only supported equity between the user types, but also supported conservation and pay for use.
Great, thank you. I remember that, I think it was our last council meeting prior to COVID shutdown where we were discussing all of these rates. And I remember that being the most poignant topic of conversation, that the subsidy, why should residents be subsidizing businesses? So I'm grateful that we've made headway there. And yes, definitely need to be at least revenue neutral. We can't operate at a deficiency. My question was more on why do we need to redo the tier structure? Of course, rates would need to increase over time, but can't that inflation just be within the same structure of what we already had? Why do we need to restructure it?
Right, and that's what we proposed in the budget and what you adopted, is we kept the same structure that we adopted in that meeting that you're discussing in 2020. Excuse me, and I'm ready for the 2021 budget. We adopted them in 2021 and 2022. They were the same rate structure. This is the same rate structure with a 2% inflator on it.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to show you the sewer rates?
Well,
Or have you decided on water rates?
Have we just, like I said, my concern was the 40-cent base rate.
Sure.
The 40 cents in the base rate, keeping that lower for the fixed income people. Where does everybody else sit on that?
Okay, so we would like to,
Zach, where are you at on that?
I'm ambivalent. I think we're straining at pennies now, so doesn't bother me. Whatever. I don't think 40 cents makes a difference even for somebody on a fixed income. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll look closer in my couch cushions and try and help some of those people out.
It looks like we've only got 3. Let's move on.
okay. I've gone to sleep. There. Okay. The sewer rate options. So currently our statistics are, we have 363 sewer connections or customers. The average volume is 5,000 gallons, and that's based on the average water use during November, December, and January. So every customer, every year in October, we go back to November, December, and January of the previous year, and we recalculate their sewer rate based on their usage for that time period. Most of them don't change too much, but some of them, there's, a usage change of some sort. So whether somebody's moved in differently and used different water, whatever. So the sewer rates are based on water usage. The base rate to connect to the sewer system is $22.44, and then each 1,000 gallons is charged $2.09. The average bill, let me go back, was $33.57. And obviously, because it's the average, it would also flow through to being the proposed rate for a basic sewer rate. That's quite a bit higher than one of our, I don't want to say competitors because we don't compete for sewer, but South Valley Sewer charges $25 a month. So I wasn't really thrilled when this number came up at $33.57. I feel like it's still kind of high. But it is the demand on our sewer system, and it is part of the cost for us to pay for the debt that expanded the sewer treatment plant. And we're obligated to that debt. So that's part of the reason that this rate is a lot higher than maybe some of the other sewer agencies around us, is that we have invested in that expansion of the sewer treatment plant. That expansion should take care of us forever. Yeah, okay. Pretty close, forever. for our entire build out. So we don't have to invest any further. So as other treatment agencies are having to invest in other expansions, if necessary, their rates will go up as well. Pros to this basic rate, 10,000 or 43% benefit from this change. Again, a winter bill that's consistent, but most of our residents would not benefit from this change. It's interesting, the residential users that do not watch their winter water use and have leaks are the ones that are pushing the sewer rate, or are taking the benefit, or I'm sorry, taking the financial burden of the sewer rate, quite candidly. There were several customers that are paying over $125 a month for sewer because they have substantial leaks on their property. We are working with public utilities now on trying to get to those customers a little more quickly so that we're not just wasting water. It's typically in their landscaping system and they just don't even notice because it's so deep underground. It also is from a leaky toilet, which can actually take quite a bit of water as well. So
Can I make a
another
quick
option, I'm sorry,
complete tangent comment on that.
absolutely,
With the new app that's kind of in beta,
yeah.
I got one of those lovely messages saying, hey, there's potentially a leak in your system. And yeah, it was my stop and waste that was about 5.5 foot underground. It will be very beneficial once we're able to roll that out. So I'm not sure if I should be praising Mr. Davenport or cursing him for making me tear up my entire front yard to replace that stupid valve. But that is a nice feature on the way to help us figure out where we have a leak. So thank you.
And that alert goes off like within 24 hours of
Well,
it saying you have a leak.
It took a few weeks before I got it after setting it up, but then yeah, I got like 12 of them all at once.
I got 12 of them all at once because I know this, I have a front yard sprinkler and a backyard sprinkler that the grandkids ripped off. And so the one in the backyard squirts up in the ground, and because of some physical problems, we haven't got it fixed. And it went off and said, you have a leak. And I know it's directly related to the sprinkler heads that were popped off. But it will be a good tool for residents to get notified if they use that to.
That there's
leaks.
unusual usage, sure.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, so our recommendation, right now, if you were to use the.
Okay, just back
You're
up.
fine.
The one of the reasons why I wanted to look at this was what you mentioned is that staff has to go back and has to recap. This is where I think that we're doing something that's totally
Archaic,
archaic's a good word.
yeah,
I was gonna use the word nonsensical, but it doesn't make sense for our staff to have to pull sewer bill, or,
Water usage.
water usage bills for 23,000 customers and recalculate every sewer bill for every different sewer customer at a different average rate. That, to me, we're wasting, the question is, I wonder how much money we're actually wasting doing that, because staff, I'm assuming, I'm gonna say this, staff could be doing a whole lot more important things than recalculating a sewer bill every year.
yeah.
So my question on that, this has come up in years before, and it was our understanding that that was just a quick extract, just a spreadsheet getting dumped out of the system saying, here's what everybody's had, a couple formulas, and then that gets loaded directly into the system with the new rates. So at the time we last asked, I think it was taking like less than a day for somebody to do the whole process.
It takes a lot longer than a day. You're right that we do pull the water usage and we calculate on a spreadsheet. But then that water usage has to be entered into the system and then audited. So it does take us quite a bit of time. But you're right, we are not like hand entering 23,000 customer usages. But there's a lot of auditing to it and making sure that we've gotten the right rates in there. It's a very different process, which is why most sewer companies just go with a flat rate. but I'm not hot on this rate right now. And I'd like to see what happens as we continue to work with the water system and with our department to be able to contact customers that have these exorbitant sewer rate bills.
So the reason why this number is so high is because we have users who have water leaks that are causing an excess of usage on the
Sewer system.
sewer system.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Well, a water leak may or may not cause excess usage on the sewer system, right? It may
But-
be on the storm drain system.
Well, but
if it's
it-
an outdoor.
It's a draw on our system as a whole. You're right.
Yeah,
100% right.
a water leak could be in any number of
Could be in the
places.
stop waste valve and just be going into the ground.
Hey,
Yeah.
mine did.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it could be.
Could be all kinds of
But
things.
because we base the sewer rate on water usage, so I'm gonna ask the question, is there a better way to base a sewer rate than based on water usage?
Well, clearly it would be just a base rate, right?
What
I
if
mean, it would
it's-
just be the
it's-
basic rate of everybody pays the same amount.
What if instead of average though, you went with something like median, so that those outliers are less of a factor? And you go with the median rate instead of the average rate. 'Cause those
But then I would
outliers
have
are
the
gonna
revenue
be,
decrease from the outliers, right? If I said somebody that pays $125 a month right now in sewer and I replace their bill with $33 a month, then I'm out that revenue.
So how many people are the outliers here? I mean,
We could just keep billing them high. If you've got a certain winter usage in excess of, you're gonna end up paying a higher sewer rate, but everybody else pays a lower
well,
rate.
and that's, I'm wondering, is there that possibility that, let's just say the hypothetical base rate is $25 or $26 a month, for your average water user, and there's a point where, based on this spreadsheet that we could run, that triggers a excess usage rate that would be tacked onto them, and they would pay that rate. But
And maybe they call and ask us a question then.
So you're saying like a basic hookup rate that includes a certain amount of volume and then add in extra volume for the high users, kind of like we just sort of shot down on the water rates?
I don't know.
It's the exact same conversation. I don't know. Still in the boat of let's leave well enough alone here.
I'd be curious how many
Thank-
hours are used by staff to calculate things out.
I can get that to you and email it.
Yeah, that'd be appreciated. Like I said, last time I'd heard, I think it was something that Michael Oliver had been doing over the course of a day. I'd also like to know if there's a breakout, like how much time is spent auditing versus how much time is actually loading it into the system. We did at one point have an issue with things being loaded into the system where, I'll say, but we're short on time. I'd be curious. Thank you.
I would be happy to answer that. Thanks.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, so this would be a sample winter billing. So the current rate structure, as average user without extra services of any kind, is paying about $91.60, close, 59 cents to a month in the winter time for utilities, for all their utilities. And under this basic plan, they would be paying $88.44. And then in the summer, with an average bill, you can see they're pretty close. Obviously, we're trying to remain revenue neutral, and the majority of that occurs during the summer, which is why you don't see much of a savings there. However, our recommendation, and it's just a staff recommendation, certainly you're the council and can ask us to do some further research or bring you back different rates, is to keep the current rates and structure. We felt like the benefit doesn't outweigh the disruption, because it's pretty small to those users that do not benefit from this change, and then that the current structure supports the pay for use and promotes conservation and equity. But we're
I
grateful for
concur.
being able to do the study. Thank you.
I think I'm with Councilmember McConaughey. I think that one of the things, let's delve into how much staff time, it's taking to use the archaic system of billing. And, and as we look at that, maybe there's some other things that as we talk about reaching out to people who have high, what appear to be abnormally high water usage in the winter, uh, that, uh, we can get that water usage down and we get more accurate. But I'm just wondering why our costs would be so much different than, and I know we've got that increase at South Valley, but, maybe there's some things that we can break down our sewer costs so we know what they are a little bit better and look at. Cause it does seem archaic to do it the way we're doing it.
I'm going along with the request on how much staff time is spent uploading, calculating and uploading rates. I'd also be very curious to see what the benefit or detriment would be for the change. Like looking at mine, we've got 5 little kids and 2 dogs, so our sewer charge is $40.45. So we'd be benefiting, but it's like $3. So I would love to see what the distribution is and what it's the average impact by changing, if that could be like broken out on a fun little distribution chart.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
The next topic is a discussion to replace Lyle Summers on Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District Board. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, council. The city received an email from Mr. Summers and the board chair of Jordan Valley Water Conservancy. Lyle Summers desires to resign from the board, but he has also indicated he's willing to serve until the council comes up with a replacement for that seat. The board is a multi-county special service district that is run from code or from state code, so I want to go to the state code first. It's a district located in more than a single county because they draw water from Jordanelle Reservoir, among other reservoirs that are not in Salt Lake County. And so this code, which deals with service districts like Jordan Valley, the appointment is actually made by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate, Utah State Senate. And so as you see there in 2A, the middle paragraph there, the legislative body of each municipality, which is you, within the division shall submit 2 nominees per trustee. You may remember back in December of last year of 21, we just had the one name, and I had asked the council if they wanted to consider a second name before we nominated the 2 names to give to the governor. The 2 names that you submitted at that time in December was Mr. Greg Summerhays and Mr. Lyle Summers. Governor appointed Lyle Summers and received the advice and consent of the Senate. So that's the state code that rules this. This is a nominee. These nominations are from the legislative body. It's kind of unique in that. The other one that also rests with you is the South Valley Mosquito Abatement District. So of the current members that are on the board, you have Don Ramsey, who's the mayor of South Jordan, representing South Jordan. You have Mick Sudbury, who is an elected trustee with the Magna Water District. A lot of, if I can just footnote here, a lot of the entities on the west side have independent improvement districts that provide water and sewer separate from the cities. So in the community township of Magna, Mick Sudbury is elected by Magna to serve as a trustee on the Magna Water District. Barbara Townsend represents areas of Murray, South Salt Lake, and is multi-city. I'm not sure who appointed her. John Taylor is the city administrator for the city of Taylorsville. And he represents Taylorsville, which is served by the Taylorsville Bending Improvement District, which is their water and sewer district. You see Sherry Orn, who is a city council member in the city of Harriman. A. Reed Gibby is also multi-jurisdictional within Salt Lake County. Karen Lang is the mayor of West Valley City, and then Corey Rushton, who is a former council member in West Valley. He's an elected trustee of the Granger Hunter Improvement District, which is West Valley's water and sewer district. So tonight's discussion for the council is, do you want to develop a process so we can the city can come up with 2 names to bring to you for consideration, or, sorry, present you names where you can bring it down to the 2 names to submit to the governor? Or do you want to discuss names tonight that we can bring back to you with a resolution of nominations to present that to the governor's office? So tonight is just a discussion of how would you like us to proceed to come up with these 2 names for the governor to appoint one of them.
I'm not too concerned about which process to follow, but I'd like to throw my name in the hat if we choose to do a council member. Dirk's hat, probably, but you know.
Councilmember Worthen, did I hear you talk?
I was just asking Alan to repeat the 2 options he had said.
There's a process that the council can direct us to either solicit names from the community to serve. You can also solicit names from staff. You could solicit names from yourself. The end goal or the end desire is that by the time we get the paperwork to you for resolution, that there would be 2 names to send to the governor.
I know we've had 2 city council members serve in the past. What is the meeting schedule like? Are you familiar with that?
The meetings, if I remember, are still on Wednesdays at, there was one council member that served previously. His name was council member Chad Nichols. It's usually on a council night, one night a month or one afternoon. So it is an afternoon meeting, and he would leave that meeting to come to council meeting.
So it potentially conflicts with city council.
Potentially
duties.
does.
Okay. Thank you. Well,
I would be fine, just putting it out there to residents, staff, and, council if they, like if Chad was able to do it, just left from one meeting to the next. And if it works, that's fine. I don't think we should rule out council members if Zach wants to throw his name in. But I do think it would make sense to put it out to staff and the community.
Are those meetings monthly?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm going to disagree with Councilmember Worthen. I think it needs to be a council member. It needs to be an elected official. Elected officials are there's a reason why there's elected officials on this board. And when you look at the overwhelming number of them, there's a reason why elected officials are there, because they're accountable to constituents. And like Zach, I would throw my name into that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that general philosophy. Not that it necessarily has to be a council member, but an elected official or somebody who's accountable to the people. It's a government thing, but because it's a multi-jurisdictional, right? The water district covers more than just one city, or, the lines don't line up with county lines and things like that. It makes sense to have it be people who are elected, who have, it's the people's job to oversee the water on behalf of the people, right? On behalf of everybody, it's a government of the people kind of a thing. And so for me, it makes sense to have that be somebody who's elected. Now, it doesn't have to be a council member. We could throw Dirk's name in the hat, for
I
example.
was gonna say, I'd probably throw Dirk's name in there then.
As well. But anyway, just as a thought.
I mean, I'm voluntolding you, Dirk. Would that even be something you'd be interested in? I guess I should ask you first. Was that a thumbs up? Sorry, that was pretty.
He's not presently.
That was a thumbs up, yes.
Here,
Okay,
so-
I can't hear your brain rattle, so I gotta come off mute there.
That was a thumbs up.
Okay.
Is there a term of service? Is it like a yearly appointment?
It's 4
It's
years.
4 years, okay.
And I have not heard back from the executive director, but the presumption is that this would be just a continuation of continuing his original term. He's in his first year, so I would imagine, until I get confirmation, that it's 3 years plus what's left of this year.
Thank you. Well, yes, I admire part-time council members being willing to do it, whereas also I see that the opportunity for, if you're a full-time employee of the city, then it's not taking time away from other work duties, but certainly amenable to what, true, yes, that's a good point. It's taking away, whatever you do in one capacity takes away from another is an opportunity cost, but if that doesn't conflict with work duties for any other council member, that I'm amenable to that as well.
Councilmember McConaughey, any thoughts?
Many. I'm, boy, how to condense it all so it comes out making sense in a succinct manner. I'm, in response to the question about the process, I just want to make sure that we have the right person, whether that's asking for names publicly. I don't care so much whether that person's from the council, from staff, or somebody in the public. I appreciate what Mr. Summers, former council member Summers, has done. I like having somebody there with an economist background. That was kind of nice to have. But it all comes down to who. So in direct response to the question, would we like to just throw names out? I'd like to see who's interested and then review the names, review the rationale for desiring to serve there, and then make a decision at that point.
I would agree with Chris on that because I don't want to cut our noses off to spite our face. Somebody who volunteers for this type of board, they're doing it for their community. I can't see why. So, but at least have the opportunity to look at those people and see who the right choice is.
What is the nature of most of the conversations? Does anyone know? Is it oversight, or is it, as we just went through, is it more math oriented in terms of numbers, or is it philosophical approach to the issues? Just seeing if we need a left brain or right brain person.
I prefer somebody who uses their whole brain.
Council Chair, may I suggest Greg Davenport helping to answer that question? He attends the meetings currently.
Right, from the meetings that I attend, they do make policy decisions for the district. So they are called upon to make policy positions. They're called upon to look at the financial situation of the district. They hire people to do work for the district. So they approve contracts similar to what you guys do, but again, it's just in water. So that's a lot of what they do.
They raise taxes.
They raise taxes, exactly. So those are the functions that they will do. Is they're there to make decisions, and when they make decisions, that's the way that the district goes.
So similar to what we received tonight from Ms. Steck, there's staff preparing, crunching the numbers, presenting, and then this is an oversight board to make the final determination.
That is correct. You'll have staff, they'll go make presentations. And if there is, they also have a citizen comment, they'll have a business items. If there is a decision to be made, they'll vote, and that will determine, whether they hire the contractor or whether they adopt the policy.
This person also has a vote as to, some of the policy matters that were brought up, like how should we treat contracts if cities aren't contracting for the minimum they're actually going to use? What should we charge them if they go above? When they came out and said there's contract stipulations for water-wise landscape ordinances, there does need to be a tight connection between the person serving and the council so we know what's going on, so we don't get surprises.
I will say one other thing.
I would agree.
Our current board member does know a little bit about water. It is helpful to know a little bit about water because you'll be sitting on the advisory board that makes all the decisions about water.
Well, I think that's equivalent to saying it's helpful for a city council person to know a little bit about streets, because we sit on the board that, does the streets department budget and the parks and everything else. And none of us are experts on streets or parks.
Right, but, and I guess what I mean is it, not that it can't be learned, right?
Right.
It helps, I think it's helpful that a city council person understands, public process, right? So you do,
Right.
Zach, I think that you do have an expertise because you approve contracts here, you do things that they will do, right? Where an average citizen may not do that, might not have that.
Right. It's not an expertise that you necessarily go in with, but I think the more important thing is not that you send in a water expert, just like I don't think you need to elect public works officials to be city council members for the same reason. Not that any of you are not qualified to be city council members. If you want to run, knock yourself out.
No,
be interesting.
exactly,
Watch.
but I just think, remember, they are going to represent the city and the city's interests.
And see, I
so-
think that's key. I agree with Councilmember Green on that, that I think it's important that it's somebody who's representing the city. And I don't mean the city staff, and I don't mean the city government, I mean the city people.
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
Yep, and I agree with you, Councilmember Jacob, that it needs to be somebody who represents, who's elected, who represents the people, who's got some accountability, because that's the only way you can hold the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District accountable.
But I don't think it hurts to keep the pot open to let people, volunteer, or, have their name put in so we can at least evaluate that. I just don't want to cut anybody out. That might be a really good option.
So who would we be cutting out that's a good option, that's accountable to the people?
Well, I don't want to just say it has to be someone from council or it has to be the mayor. I mean, if there's someone from staff that would be interested.
But how would they-
If there's another community member, because Lyle was a community member, he's a former, there's also another former council member on there. So maybe Chad Lamb would be interested. Maybe one of our planning commissioners would be interested. They might be a good fit.
But how?
So I just don't want to cut that off.
Melissa, how does that come back to the accountability to the people?
Well, Lyle wasn't a council member while he's been on the board. Is he not accountable?
I would tell you that we didn't get reports as often as we should have. If they're meeting every month and we're not getting a report from Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District where did we not get the information that we needed? I can't answer that because we didn't get a report every month.
I'm just saying, I don't think there's any harm in bringing in more than just people from the council.
Okay, so how would you do
I don't
that?
think there's any harm in evaluating and looking at the reason why someone would want to do it and if they would be a good fit. Doesn't mean we're going to pick that person because maybe they're not the right fit. But I don't think it hurts to widen up the pot to see if there's some other people.
Kind of wish we had all 7 here for this discussion.
Yes, I agree with the idea of having someone who's accountable to the people in their current service capacity while also an open transparency. Perhaps send out a call like we do for our other boards and commissions to see if anyone is interested, so that we are showing good faith, open transparency, and then make the decision at the next meeting once we've received that, recognizing that we can take into consideration their professional expertise, any current service they're providing to the constituents, and make the decision there. Do we need to act on this tonight? This was more of a conversation, right? It wasn't that we needed to tender 2 names tonight, correct?
The option is to you, if you want to tender 2 names, if there's a consensus. Just as far as timing and process, for the next meeting, the packets would be due tomorrow. So if we're going to solicit names from the community, which could include council members, you're probably, by the time you get that designed and out to the public and time to collect things and the 2-week preparation to get it before the council, you're probably looking at the earliest October 26th or November before you'll be able to make a decision and submit that to the governor.
And with Mr. Summers mentioning that he's amenable to continuing his service until such time as another person is selected, was that something eminent? Like, was the time frame a month?
I have
Was
not-
it open-ended? Did it really matter?
I have not, sorry. I have not talked to Mr. Summers, so I don't know how long he would be willing to serve. I feel like my responsibility to you is to do it expeditiously. But I'm going to do whatever I'm directed to by the majority of the council. I'm just trying to let you be aware of the timelines that if we're going to solicit names and go through that process to bring back, it would probably be a work session, the second meeting of October at the earliest, most likely November. And we can do a work session and again at that point, or the end goal is we need by resolution to have 2 names to send to the governor.
Well, if it's something that we feel needs to be taken care of this evening, we already have 2 people who have
Yeah, we
offered.
You had kind of a third name.
Kind of a third vicariously. So I don't have any qualms with either Mayor Burton, Councilmember Green, or Councilmember Jacobs serving. I do want to honor and recognize what Councilmember Worthen mentioned, that if time is not of the essence, if we're not feeling urgency, that an outreach to the community wouldn't hurt. And it provides more transparency and an opportunity to have more people invested in their community if we feel that someone else that volunteers is a better fit. So I see it both ways. If we feel like we need to take action tonight or not. Thank you.
I'd just rather make the right decision, not a quick decision.
So I've kind of made my point clear, but one thing I just wanted to add to what Councilmember Pack just said is that there will always be somebody who's a better fit. We have 114,000 people in this city. The odds of us picking the best person are pretty slim. Just like I am sure there's at least 113,999 who could do my job better than I'm doing it. But I'm the one who's sitting here. So I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And that, so I just philosophically speaking, I think it needs to be a council member. If it's me, great. If it's not me, that's great too. But that's just philosophically speaking. I think it's more important that we have somebody who speaks for the people of the city and who speaks for the council of the city than somebody who is just pulled from a random spot in the city. We don't even have to nominate a resident. I don't think. We just have to nominate 2 people, right? It could be.
No, they have to be a resident.
Do they have to be a resident? So we can't nominate Governor Cox and Deidre Henderson. That doesn't, okay.
No, it doesn't work.
So we won't include that.
Well, the other point is we have 2 other council members that aren't here. And if they're interested, I'd like to be able to have that option too.
Councilmember Whitelock is not interested.
Yeah, I would like to hear from them, though, what
talked to
their
her.
opinion is on the process too.
So, I mean, I'd just like to hear from both the council members. I realize that Kelvin, you talked to her, but I haven't heard from her. So it'd be like at least all 7 of us to have the opportunity to discuss.
Yeah, I just said I wish all 7 were here tonight, but we can definitely table this until all 7 are here.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, it's not a pending resolution or anything.
But if we table this to when all 7 are here, we're going to be tabling it till the first meeting in October. Because there are already people who have declared that, or the second meeting of, so if we say we're going to wait until all 7 council members are here, we're not going to deal with this until Christmas.
That's true. Maybe we could have staff reach out to the 2 who aren't here and get their feedback on a way to proceed, not anything formal, but just some input on how they'd like to proceed.
Okay.
So there's the 2 things running through my mind are kind of people and principles. It sounds like in principle, there's a couple on the council who feel like this absolutely needs to be somebody from the council. There are some of us that feel like, well, we'd like to look and try and get the right person. Is there any harm in directing council staff to proceed with asking for names beyond the council. Thoughts and opinions, once we see names, may change and say, yeah, they'd work well. Or thoughts and opinions may still focus on having somebody from the council serve. If we want to get things moving as quick as we can, I would wonder if it would be more expeditious to ask council staff to put out a request to see who's interested in serving so that we can proceed. It may not change the minds of those who feel like it needs to be somebody from the council, but it at least gets the ball rolling.
How long would we do that for? 2 weeks?
I would say, like, if they start today, leave it open for 3 weeks so it can be ready for a workshop session a month from now. Whatever the timing looks like for that.
I'd agree with that.
I'm not sure I like 3 weeks, but okay.
Just at least 2 weeks, but whatever it is, so that they can be ready 1 month from now. First meeting of October.
2 weeks is fine. 2 or 3, I don't think it really matters. It's like Chris just said, as long as it's ready for the next. That meeting.
Agreed, not to belabor the point, and to help clarify, I do see the benefit and do believe it would be a hard thing to find someone who would be a better fit than someone who's an elected official on city council. Mayor Burton could be a good fit, but I really believe this resides with the council. It's interesting to see other mayors on there. Also, other city employees. We already have.
Remember, all the other mayors are are council members.
Or the council mayor format. Good point. Thank you. And we already have a great employee on the board. Maybe there's another city employee might be a good fit, but I definitely see and agree with the philosophy that it would be good to have a council member on there. Just from the public perception and also what we're trying to create in transparency and getting more people involved, I think that there's a good outreach and goodwill saying, hey, please, we want to work with people and we want to get people volunteering. And if there's anybody that would like to, please let us know. And maybe in that effort, even if they're not selected for this board, they would be amenable to serving on a different board or commission. It doesn't just need to be this one.
Council, I appreciate you submitting my name, but since there are 2 other council members that are already volunteering, I will withdraw my name and just let the other 2 of you go ahead and send your names forward if you choose to do so. I don't want to make this more difficult, so I'll go ahead and withdraw my name.
I think right now that what we've got is we've got at least 3 who are saying, put this out, ask for community names.
Bring it back. First workshop October.
Bring it back. So so here's my recommendation, Alan. You got to get something out tomorrow on Facebook page, something that says we're seeking that, put a close date on it, and we're going to have a list of names, a list of resumes, and that's going to come back to a work session. Rob, would that have to be closed if we're talking about resumes and who we're appointing? That doesn't have to be closed?
No.
Okay, so then we bring that back to work session. And Alan, I'm going to suggest that what we're probably going to have at some point in time, maybe, that maybe you and Cassidy can work on, which will be a precursor to January anyway, is a way to do anonymous voting by adding people's names and then we vote.
Okay, we will work on that. We will start soliciting names.
Does that work?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the open forum versus closed. My understanding was that the only time we're required to have it in public is if I think it was if it was to consider who's going to backfill the role of a council member. But in this case, I think I would prefer to have closed session where we're discussing various folks for the possible fulfillment of this role. If it doesn't have to be in the public, given the nature of the conversation, I think I'd prefer closed.
Yeah, the question was, does it have to be? And the answer is no, it doesn't have to be, but the act allows you to make these type of, you can consider these names because you're talking about their character and competency in a closed meeting, if that's what you choose to do so.
The decision still obviously has to be
Right.
ratified in an open meeting, but the conversation could happen in a closed session.
It doesn't have to, but you can choose to do it in a closed meeting.
I would like to go that route.
What do you think, Zach?
As far as closed session, I'm fine if we want to discuss it in closed session. That doesn't bother me. Right, I'm still kind of adamant that it should be an elected person. I'm not in favor of the, well, gosh, let's see if there's anybody better. I mean, we can open that up. We can, well, gosh, and see if there's anybody better when we have council elections next year and see if anybody's better.
Okay, so
Let the people decide that then.
Well, Melissa,
And let the people decide that then.
closed or not?
I agree with Chris. I'm doing it closed.
David?
Thanks for inquiring. I agree. I believe you can have more poignant conversations that are, when you're dealing with talking about people, it's not necessarily the most respectful things a lot of times to be weighing in on pros and cons and comparing and contrasting in an open setting such as that. So yes, let's definitely outreach so we have transparency, but then to be respectful of the people whom we are vetting, that should probably be confidential. And then I agree with adjourning and coming back to the open meeting so that we can, of course, in an open forum, vote on and appoint that individual.
can I get just some clarity then? What I've written down is asking for names for a period of 3 weeks, which would exceed the next meeting on September 28th. So if we wanted to do, you just want to do 2 weeks, is that?
We just want it ready for the first meeting of October, whatever the time frame happens to be that corresponds with that.
Okay, so do you want the closed meeting then on the 12th and not a work session?
We could do the closed during the work session.
Okay. Okay, we will do that.
Because the closed session wouldn't necessarily need to comprise the entirety of the work session, right? We could close.
What do
come
we
back.
have for October 12th is for the,
For October 12th, we were going to,
In the interest of time, I would be open to letting council leadership determine where this falls best. If it doesn't fit on October 12th because there's already too much, that's fine.
I don't think we have enough time to deal with with the third item on this agenda. I think we're gonna have to move that to another night.
yeah, let me just end with this. What we have right now for the 12th is an introduction to the general plan and some PID discussion. That is just starting with the planning commission, so it would probably be okay to delay that on the 12th. And then we can move this third item to the next meeting. We have an opening for that.
I think we're good. I don't think, the next discussion is gonna take us way longer than what we need to get to 7, and have a break before 7 o'clock, so, if everybody's okay, we'll just not address this agenda item and we'll move it to, the next meeting. Okay, what was that?
I was just verifying with legal that if leadership wants to move it, leadership can move it.
Okay. Well, there's only one of us here, but I just don't think we have the time to do this justice. If we did, we're gonna go well over time, so. Yeah, I don't think we even get this introduced in 45 seconds, so with that, we'll just postpone the discussion regarding the at-large council seat council seat amendments and we'll adjourn. We will take a recess. Actually, you know what? This is committee of the whole. Do we need a motion to adjourn? Rob's saying.
Yes.
So I'm going to move to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay, just to see if we can get,
Oh, so now you have to do a roll call vote. Okay,
I'll say aye. I'll say
Okay.
aye.
Councilmember McConaughey has changed his mind. It's now a unanimous vote. Committee of the whole is now adjourned. We'll reconvene as the city council meeting at 7 PM.